Im GOLDINVEST-Interview sprechen wir mit Feisal Somji, CEO der kanadischen Price Mining. Das Unternehmen entwickelt die China Daylight-Liegenschaft. Wir wollen heute mal nachhören, wo es damit steht. Mr. Somji, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. To begin with, please give us some background information about yourself. Tell us about your track record in mining.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and your subscription base behind you. You know, my background, I started in mining in the early 1990s. I started essentially from the ground up. My first job was a camp guy. I cleaned the toilets and changed the oil in the generator. I worked my way up to be a sampler. I ran geophysical crews and equipment. I went on the drill rigs and was a driller for a while, so I know the operational side of exploration and mining quite well. With that, I think comes a very strong sense of operational controls, being able to communicate with the field personnel, with the drillers, and really the key behind all that is to go out there and collect real and good data. You know, our business in exploration and development, really our biggest asset is our data. And so to collect good data and know what to do with that data is where I came from. I went back to school. I did my MBA. I then started working with public companies as a CFO. I then understood the financial background of how these companies operate, how money is spent, and really the value of how to spend money and convert that to, again, good data. It wasn't until 2005 I went out on my own and started to do my own companies. Along the way, we've had some good successes. We've also had some failures, as most people have in our business.
Yeah.
But you know, I pride myself in the fact that even the failures that we've had, we could still walk away with our head up and know that the money was spent in the right way, the data was collected. It was just either a function of geology or a function of geopolitical risk. But aside from that, we've had some good successes. My last company was Rio Alto, which we started in 2009, and we took it from a 10 million market cap and sold it recently for about 1.3 billion to Tahoe, putting that project into production in about 18 months.
That's pretty fast. We were lucky enough to start covering Rio Alto when they were at 30 cents. So thank you for that. Now you're working the China Daylight property. What attracted you to that property in the first place?
Yeah, you know, I took a little bit of time off from the mining sector as things were tough, and I was convinced to come back in and really the business plan around prize mining is to try and duplicate our previous success. So try to do something similar to what we did with Rio. As we started with Prize as a shell company, we needed an asset to get up and going. So we needed something we could move into at a reasonable price. But at the same time, I wanted something that really had some legs and some potential. China has just under 2 million ounces in a 43-101 report with about 500,000 in measured and indicated. So that alone is a fantastic starting base. We acquired the asset for less than $2 an ounce. So again, it was a good entry price. And I've watched the China project since probably 10 years now as it's developed. What we see is some real high-grade potential in the area. We have worked towards consolidating that land position so that it's under one roof. And I think the real potential with China is, in addition to the nearly 2 million ounces that sit in there, is to build additional resources, but higher grade resources that we can get into production quicker, permit quicker, and move into cash flow quicker.
Okay. So in that regard is the Tafnut property you recently announced as a strategic acquisition. Can you please elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, you know, when we acquired the China project, there's what we've identified as the China and the Daylight properties, and then recently we've added the Tafnut property. Previous guys that have optioned the China property never had the Daylight property attached to it. The daylight property is the high-grade area of the overall properties, and that's where we see that high-grade potential. What we also see in that area is it's always been operated by either prospectors or companies that have had small pieces of ground. So really our idea was to consolidate that land position. Tough Nut was a strategic acquisition in that it covered the remaining part of the Silver King shear zone that we didn't already cover through the daylight property. And so now we've covered the entire area where we've seen high-grade results from previous exploration activity. We also see high-grade results from previous mining operations that happened in the early 1900s. So historical kind of mining operations, not a lot of tonnage, but we're seeing consistent grades through those operations. So we now cover that entire high-grade area, and that's where the area of focus is for us today.
Okay, very interesting. You already completed the first phase of exploration on daylight and Tough Nut. Can you tell us what you've been doing so far and what you're aiming at with that?
Yeah, our first phase was a sampling and prospecting program. It's just getting our boots on the ground, getting a good understanding of the area, the infrastructure, and also filling in the holes from previous sampling programs, and also helping us identify and confirm our exploration targets for when we get into phase 2 and phase 3. So that sampling, both soil and rock sampling program is now complete. We're expecting results in this month, so we'll start to see some news flow through August. And then again, what that will do is provide us some confirmation for phase 2, which is a trenching program. And then again, will then give us more confidence into phase 3, which will be our drilling program. Our trenching program will start in a couple of weeks, and our drilling program will start in September.
Okay, so let's say everything goes as you would like it to go. Where would you want to see the company at the end of this year?
Well, our intention is to start to produce an additional resource base. So we want to see ourselves starting to put together additional resources of higher grade materials that we can then bring into a 43-101 likely next year. I don't think that would happen in 2017. But where we want to go with Kina is to move towards an additional resource, 43-101 resource, but also move towards a position where we can get into a bulk sample program for next summer. And the key reasons behind that is it gives us a lot more mining information. It gives us good control of our grades for what we anticipate our head grades might be for mining. It gives us better look at metallurgy of the area. And it also gives us the ability to supply some of that to nearby mills that are operating to see if this rock will fit within their milling flowchart. And then we've also opened up the option of selling ore direct to the mill, so essentially a toll milling type operation, but it gives us options of getting into cash flow sooner and for less capex, so we don't have to develop our own infrastructure.
Okay, that would certainly be a benefit. When you're talking about options, the options you have is also get into some kind of production, be it toll milling, be it building your own infrastructure, but also selling the company, like you did with Rio. Is that an option? Would you want to sell the company after you got into some kind of production, or before, or depending on the offer, I guess?
Yeah, one thing we're going to do a little bit differently from Rio is that although we think Kina is a fantastic project, we see ourselves building a lot more ounces there, and we see ourselves moving towards production. We do also want to look for other acquisitions. The reality is Kina is a big project. My business plan was to try to move towards production within a couple of years. I don't think Kina would allow that. I think there's a bit more work to do and some permitting process to go through. So the company has also been looking for ongoing acquisition potentials, and the business plan around that is to bring on another asset that's more advanced, that we can look to move towards production, and again add more ounces to our balance sheet. So I think over the course of the next few months, and we are getting quite close to it, I think your readers will see an announcement of an additional acquisition, and then we've got 2 programs that will be moving ahead in parallel.
Certainly very interesting. So just to sum up, in your personal opinion, give us an idea of why German investors should consider investing in the company now at this point in time.
Yeah, we're just starting up, as we did with Rio. I think we introduced that story to you at 35 cents. We did our initial financing at 25 cents with Rio. So really, we're no different from that initial stage as we are today. We did our last financing at 35 cents. We're currently trading around 40 cents, 40 to 45. So we're not far off that last financing price. I think it's a fantastic time to start to create a position in Prize for a few reasons. One, I think we're undervalued for where the business plan will take us. We've got field programs in play right now in Kina, and we're going to start to see news flow coming in through the course of this month and leading right through to the end of the year. We're seeing drilling starting to happen next month. So a lot of exciting movements happening in Kina. And then, we expect to see an acquisition here shortly as well. So, trying to get a position in the company before all those things start to come in, I think is a prudent decision.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much.